Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 6. It's Adila and Ben, and today we have a very special guest for you.
We have with us today a UWA master's student working on a very exciting tissue engineering project. He's going to try and translate observations in animals to eventually help treat humans. Please welcome Mr. Jun Woo Kim.
Woo!
Hello, everyone. I would like to thank Adila and Ben for having me today, the podcast. And this is actually my very first time, participating in something like this. So, I really appreciate.
We're
You're
very
welcome.
excited to have you here.
No, thank you for coming on the
thank
show.
you.
I know you didn't really have much choice. So we really appreciate you coming in. So Jun, we're going to find out a lot about you today and about your past and your current research as well. As Ben mentioned, you're a master's student. So let's go back to where it all started. Tell us a little bit about your cultural background as well as your educational background.
Well, to start off with, I was born in South Korea, from Seoul, which is known as the capital city of Korea. So when I was about 5 years old, I moved to Australia, Sydney, due to my dad's work, and we had our other families there already. So I think that was another reason why we actually came to Australia, Sydney, not other countries like USA or that. Yeah, so
Makes sense.
yeah. And I guess that's the most time the reason why you move to particular places because you have relatives there.
That's right.
At least you know someone.
Unless you're moving away from the relatives.
So I've spent about 4 years there, I think. So I was at kindergarten there. And then I actually had to come back to Korea and spend some time there until year 6 primary school. And then I actually moved back to Australia, but this time to Perth. And then, so...
This was for work as well?
Yeah, that's correct. From, because of my dad's work and everything. And I've been living, here, since then on, until now.
Right. And do you remember as a little kid, as a little 5-year-old coming here, like before that, had you ever traveled to another country before, or was that your first time?
No, it was actually my very first time.
Yeah, and how was that for you? Because it must be completely different to Seoul. There's less people. But I guess you moved to Sydney, so it would have been the same sort of hustle and bustle. But do you remember your feelings initially in those 4 years that you moved here?
Yeah, I think I was really excited, and everything was. I was very curious at it, because there are a lot of foreign people. Like I was growing up in where, majority of people, with black hair and black eyes, but then
In Korea, you mean?
That's
like
correct,
everyone's quite homogenous.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and then moving on to a country where we have a different ethnicities, people with different backgrounds, with different appearances.
Wow. I'm amazed that something like that you picked up when you were so young,
So as a kid, I was quite interested and curious at it, and I guess the very first challenge, I think I still remember, back then the first day of the kindergarten was that I didn't know how to speak English, so I think I still remember that I kind of struggled a little bit, but eventually somehow I catched all the things, and
Amazing.
I was able to speak English. Yeah.
And then again, after living here for 4 years, to then have to go back to Seoul where the lifestyle would be completely different as well.
Exactly.
You would have been about 12, 13, starting to become a young adult. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what your thoughts were going back home?
Yeah, so, there have been some few, transitions, in terms of basically the life, the environment that I had to live. I didn't really expect to come back to Perth. So didn't really think about anything. I was just like um, just living the life in Korea.
Settling back into what you thought would be the rest of your
That's
normal.
correct. Yeah. So and then somehow we came back.
So wait, did you want to come back?
Oh yeah, I wanted to live in
You
Australia,
wanted to,
but like we never thought that we would come back. But it was really a blissful thing,
Great, that's awesome. Tell us a little bit about your educational background.
So I went to the primary school in Korea, so I couldn't graduate the primary school because I went to Perth straight away. So I went to the high school in Perth. So the very first high school that I went to was Balga Senior High School, which I spent about 6 months, I think, because it was actually a compulsory for like any students from overseas to, if they come to Australia, then they have to actually go through like that particular. I can't remember the exact name of the course, but they had to do that course because of the English, I think. Competency, and then the next high school that I went to was called the Governor Sterling Senior High School, which
How come I've never heard of that school? Governor Sterling. Where is that?
Is it
So
private?
Is that in the city?
It's a public high school, which is in Midland.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because I don't really go that way, I think.
Yeah, you probably haven't, but I had a lot of memories there. I think I also spent about 6 months there as well. But I had to eventually move to Willerton Senior High School due to...
that sounds familiar now. Now we're
Yeah.
talking. Yep, Willerton, south
That's
of the
correct.
river.
Yeah. So because of my school issues, like the problems, our family had to move house as well, because in order to go to Willerton Senior High School, you need to live in the
Catchment area.
So, exactly, the suburb. And then I graduated there. Everything was really good there. It was an academic school. I think they had a lot of students there, and I have a lot of memories there as well.
Made a lot of friends.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I graduated, and then I came to EWA and started a bachelor's degree in science. So my major was laboratory medicine, pretty much. Pathology.
Pathology.
Yeah. So I spent about actually 4 years. I had like 2 years doing it part-time, which really helped during the stressful times, the study loads. Yeah. And then I really enjoyed the study, so I plan to advance my studies for doing a master's degree. So I've completed a master's in clinical pathology, and then now that was that was also really good. So I thought maybe doing a research course. So right now I'm doing a unit called a Master of Pathology, so it's a little bit different to what I did before. So
you did your undergrad, you then went to do a master's.
Yep,
and this is your second master's.
That's correct. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a research kind of a based course.
Whereas the other previous masters, was that more coursework?
That's correct. Yeah, It was based on coursework.
So now you're adding on a research component.
That's correct.
Very cool.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's currently where you are now.
Yes.
Now, before you move on, Jun, to talk about your particular project, can you let everyone know, what does education mean to you?
Well, I personally think that education it's like a privilege. Well, first thing is that we live in such a blessed country. I think Australia is a very it's a rich and a beautiful country where there are many opportunities to educate it or get a job or live a life that you really want to live. But sometimes I think we get very used to this and take it for granted.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I think education is something that is very valuable, which not everyone could actually have access to. So, for example, due to various circumstances, like some countries, like developing countries, like in a place like Africa, some kids would not have the same opportunities as us, or like a Burma, and so on. So yeah, or even even if you have the opportunity, some people sometimes your own head does not follow as what you want to do. So I guess yeah, that's pretty much what education really means to
Amazing.
me.
You heard it here first, folks, from a guy who's about to have 2 master's degrees. Amazing.
Jun, we've just spoken about what education means to you. Maybe we can touch on now the differences between masters and PhD, and what has made you want to carry on and do a research component.
Well, I haven't actually started, or completed a PhD, so I don't really know that much about it. But I think, Adela and Ben, you guys would, know better than me. But I think, the main difference is that obviously the timeline. So masters normally it's like a 1 or a 2 year kind of a course, while PhD obviously it takes about 3 or 4, or even more time. And
Would you say also, Jun, that a master's is more specialized? So usually, like you said, master of clinical pathology, was it? And masters of like speech pathology, audiology, whereas a PhD is...
It's kind of like in a chosen area, and it's much. Oh, I guess there is.
It's still in a chosen field of specialization, like I guess we're biomedical kind of science, but not to the point where, for example, masters of speech pathology, when you finish that, you are then a speech pathologist.
Yeah.
Whereas with a PhD, it's nothing that.
At the end, it doesn't get you to a specific job.
Yeah. Still quite open, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another difference that I can think of to add on to the timeline.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah. What about the finished product? What do you submit at the end?
So in masters, I have to submit something called a dissertation, which is a little bit different to honors as well, I think, as well as PhD, which we call the thesis, I think. So dissertation is basically, I think it's more focused in terms of the methodology. So even, for example, if I didn't, get the results, I guess the ideal results, or that I wanted to, I guess I could still achieve a good score, and advance to perhaps like a PhD or something like that.
And it's still pretty stressful and full on. So I'm really surprised because you've been through this before. You've done a dissertation before, so you kind of know what you're coming into doing this master's. Is that right?
Actually, I haven't done a dissertation before.
Oh, because it's coursework.
Yeah,
All right,
correct.
no, I'm with it now because it was coursework.
Mm-hmm.
So you had units and assignments rather than a big dissertation to do at the end of your research project. Right. Okay.
Jun, why don't you tell us about your project? What are you currently working on? What's your research, and what are you hoping to achieve by the end of your master's research?
So my project is about vascular tissue engineering. So what we are trying to do is that so currently the issues about the vascular grafts that are available today are that once it's implanted, it goes through a negative remodeling, which is driven by the process of an inflammation. So this is very similar to what we see in the pathogenesis of atherosclerosis, where eventually, because of the inflammation, it drives the negative remodeling, and basically weakens the wall of the vessels, and causes a lot of problems such as stenosis, and for example, aneurysms, and I guess the stenosis is the most biggest problem, which causes the failure of the graft.
Jun, sorry, before you go
Yeah.
on, I just want to, some of our listeners who may not be familiar
Mm-hmm.
with this kind of thing, just to sort of explain, for example, a graft is when you have an artery or a vessel, a blood vessel in your body, for example, the coronary arteries that supply the heart, when they get blocked up, it can become a problem because that's how people have a heart attack. And usually if the blockage is quite severe, that's when, these people have to undergo a big operation where doctors actually have to harvest a blood vessel from another part of their body and use that as a graft to then merge with the blocked vessel so that the vessel is then reopened. But this is why your research is so interesting, because there are so many people that currently have that kind of issue. So am I right in saying that these grafts that you're looking to sort of down the track
Yes, that's correct.
make for people to become able to be used for a long period of time?
Yes, that's correct.
Because the current grafts that we use now are not that good?
Yes. So currently, I guess the gold standard of the coronary artery bypass surgery is that harvesting, an autologous vein or even some arteries, and I guess the consequences for that is, you have to, basically harvest from your own body, so you'll leave some comorbidities, and it could cause some like some kind of problems. And even if those grafts, so for example, autologous vein graft is the most commonly used graft for the coronary artery bypass surgery. When it's used, it's actually a vein. It's not an artery, so it's not designed to withstand the hemodynamic stress of an artery. Of an artery that
because the heart is
through.
continuously pumping blood under a really high pressure, and veins aren't meant to withstand that kind of high pressure throughout the body, because veins are quite low pressure.
That's right. So what's going to happen is that clinically, I think about in a decade, those grafts, I think the failure rate is about like 50%, and due to the stenosis.
So they become blocked again.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So
and what happens, Jun, if that gets blocked? Do they harvest another vein?
So in that case, they have to go through another surgery. So I think that's another problem. So that
and
they have to harvest from somewhere else. But sometimes they due to various reasons, some patients could have like autoimmune vascular kind of pathologies, so like diseases. In that case, they won't be able to harvest from their own body. Then they have to look for some other alternatives, and I guess it just gets harder and harder. So so my project, what we're trying to do is that we are trying to design, I would say, not like an artificial like a blood vessel, but we're trying to design some kind of a scaffold, which we try to implant, so basically replace the conventional grafts, so that when we implant it, it will actually trigger a regeneration using our body as an own bioreactor, and hopefully all the scaffolds would be degraded and be replaced with the patient's
cells from our own body.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that is the goal of the regenerative medicine and tissue engineering. Yeah.
Amazing. Sounds so futuristic.
Yeah, it does.
Like, we're going to plant this scaffold in your body. Cells from your own body is going to populate the scaffold and eventually grow into that blood vessel to replace. Wow.
And obviously there are different, types of materials that we could potentially use for the design of the graft. And also another big thing is that how we can actually produce that graft. Obviously, 3D printing is quite a hot topic at the moment. It's like an emerging field of study. So in our kind of laboratory, my supervisor, Elena, she is an expert in a 3D printer called a mmmmm, so melt electrowriting printer.
MEW, MEW.
That's correct, MEW, yeah. So it's a bit of a sophisticated type of a 3D printer, which we can actually print out any kind of a object, so within like a within microns of or submicrons of a like a diameter.
Very, very tiny,
very tiny
fine
things.
vessels.
Yep. So we can actually mimic and build like those exact ultra structures of the blood vessels. So for example, collagen fiber orientation is very crucial for the mechanical properties of the blood vessels, and so we can actually print out the exact basically the structures, the shape of the collagen fibers, so that it can the scaffold itself can mimic the mechanical property of the native the artery or
That sounds so
vessel.
interesting. And is it quite a big lab that you're working with? Are there many people under Elena?
There's about, I think, 7 or 8 people at the moment in Elena's group. And yeah, basically all those individuals, they work essentially in, their goal is the same thing. So we're trying to translate the tissue engineering into the clinics so that we can, produce scaffold which we can replace for various applications. So some people work in specifically on the 3D printers, so optimizing them, make sure, to make a better printer so that we can actually print exactly what we want. Well, some others are working on like hard valve tissue engineering, so I guess that's a little bit more complicated. And I think vascular tissue engineering compared to like something like heart valve or heart tissue engineering, I think it's relatively easier kind of field because it's just like
easier, he says. Okay.
Yeah.
And how are you going now? Are you sort of trying to wrap up your masters? Are you in the finishing stages? Are you doing some analysis?
Yeah, that's great. So at the moment, I'm in a stage of performing analysis, and there are some, I think, experiments to be done. It's kind of ongoing, and I guess this year has been quite a crazy year, due to the COVID-19. I think a lot of my the milestones, for example, like literature reviews and things, that's been delayed. So because of that, I guess my final dissertation due date has been delayed as well. So I did
So
get
you're
an
getting
extension.
an extension.
That's
good.
correct. Yeah.
So COVID really impacted your research and your timelines.
That's correct. Yeah. So I'm hoping to finish by end of this year or early next year. And yeah, so
sounds like a busy couple of months ahead, but we wish you all the best, and I'm sure you're going to wrap up everything just in time. Okay, so Jun, I want to go back to your roots, and I want to talk a little bit about how you come from Korea. And I went to Korea myself back in 2018. So I went to Seoul, did a bit of traveling around Seoul. I went to Busan as well, which was very different to Seoul. I don't know if you've ever been to Busan.
Yeah, I've been twice actually.
Which is a lot more south, right?
That's
South
correct.
than Seoul. Yeah. And I also went to Nami Island, which is nearby. It's a very popular tourist destination. And I have to say, I fell in love with Korea, South Korea, the people, the food, everything. And this year I actually started learning Korean, which, as you've been helping me with my homework. So thank you so much. So why do you think the K-wave or the Korean wave in the last couple of years has become so popular worldwide?
Oh, that's a good question.
And it must be amazing to feel, that popularity of people being interested in your culture, in your language, and things like that.
Well, I'm actually not too sure how K-pop
really good marketing.
suddenly became this popular and crazy.
Yeah, you know what? That's weird because every single country has their own language, and they sing music, they sing their own kind of songs, but they don't call it like Malaysian pop. It's just pop. And then, but in Korea, it's like, oh, it's Korean pop, it's K-pop. Like it's
got its own distinct genre.
Yeah, it's a very distinct genre. That's right.
Yeah, I think
Like, are you shocked how big the K wave became?
yeah, just like if you see today, like around the world, globally as well, people are starting to recognize about the K-pop. I think gets kind of feel proud at the same time, but also yeah, I am quite amazed the fact that yeah, people are now starting to just recognize them.
Appreciate
Yeah.
the culture. Do either of you listen to any K-pop?
Um, I do listen to K-pop, but I am not, to up to updates of the latest songs.
Yeah.
But I tend to listen to the old K-pop music. Speaking generally, I think I'd say any songs that that I like, I tend to listen to them, and generally a lot of songs, they're really good old songs, than
Yeah.
what we
Like
think.
any particular kind of songs of bands that
Yeah.
you like? Or...
So I'm really in love with like jazzy,
Oh,
Korean
okay.
like music, like an R&B,
Yeah, right.
and hip hop or like an indie kind of music.
Sounds like you have a variety of taste.
Yeah.
So I guess it doesn't really matter if it's old or new. Like I think
Yeah,
as long
definitely.
as the songs
As long as you like it.
that's correct. Yeah, I like
Um,
it.
I know Ben is actually BTS's #1 fan, so he listens to them.
No.
It's his guilty pleasure on the drives home, isn't it, Ben? What's your favorite BTS song?
Actually, I don't know. It's all mixed in with my like songs. There's a few in there. I don't know if I actually remember any of the names of the songs.
Yeah, right. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, Black Velvet's got a few in there as well.
Mm.
But
Oh, nice. Red Velvet
yeah,
fan.
Red Velvet,
Oh.
sorry, not Black Velvet.
Yeah. I'm
there's a
really
few in
into
there.
Blackpink.
Mm.
They are really
Oh, yeah.
good.
Who's your favorite member?
Oh, I like them all, but if I had to pick, I'm really into. I really like Lisa. I think she's really funny and she's quite a good dancer as well. And they're also talented in different ways, which is what I like about K-pop. Sometimes the groups seem very manufactured, but at times, being in a group, you can also see their different talents shine through, which is great. Yeah, so I'm a bit like you, Jun. I like to listen to a lot of variety of different music, and like you said, if you like it, you like it. It's music; it speaks to us all, right? What about Korean dramas as well? In the last few years, have been very popular. I know myself on Netflix. There's been lots of recommendations, especially with the different Korean dramas. And me and Mum will indulge in a few every now and again because the story is so catchy. Like, you get really sucked into the story and it's so emotional. And I think Korean dramas are so good at doing that. Is there any K dramas that you guys watch? Anything you're interested in?
Well, I used to watch a lot of K dramas, long time ago, but I know that the fact that, as you said, is very interesting, and it's actually very addictive.
Yeah,
So
it is.
I guess these days I've been stopped watching K dramas, but when I the K dramas that I really enjoyed are those like a which has like a medical kind of a theme, like a yeah, that's right. So it's a really old one, so you guys would probably won't know, but there's one called a K drama called a White Tower. So that one's my favorite.
Oh,
So
would
it's
you
actually
recommend that for us to watch and our listeners too? White Tower, okay.
that's great. So that's actually, if you're interested in like like medicine or like a surgery, then I think you would really enjoy it. It's a drama about a one genius, a surgeon, a general surgeon. It's about his life, and
Reminds me a bit of Grey's Anatomy, Jun. Is it like a Korean Grey's Anatomy?
yeah. So like
But-
House, Scrubs, and I think
Yeah.
The Good Doctor today.
Yeah.
That's right.
But when you watch those kinds of shows, you kind of realize how fake everything is. And like the patient's bleeding out, and then all of these things are happening. Is White Tower super fake as well, or is it a little bit better?
I would say it's a little bit better. Yeah.
Oh, good.
They really, I think, made it well. Like they did, the process of the filming and all these things.
Very realistic.
That's right. They have actually consulted with real physicians, doctors and surgeons.
Good.
And and also the actors. I think they're really, they're awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I think because of the virus, you obviously can't fly back to Seoul when normally maybe you would have. But do you miss Korean food? Do you eat a lot of Korean food at home? And what are some of your favorite Korean foods that you want to recommend to us?
I'd say my most favorite Korean food would be Korean fried chicken.
Mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise chicken.
That's good. Nene chicken. So I think in Perth, one of probably Nene chicken is one of the best Korean fried chicken.
I like the lemon flavor because it's
Oh.
like Korean fried chicken, but it's got like this lemon glaze and it's so fresh, even though you're eating fried chicken. Amazing.
Really good.
Do you like the spicy?
Spicy. What is it? Sweet,
Sweet
spicy.
yeah,
I do
that's-
love spicy.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
You know what
one.
I don't like?
Mm.
Snowing cheese. I know, unpopular
Ooh.
opinion. Everyone loves snowing cheese, but I just don't like that weird, like cheesy fake cheese flavor on my fried chicken.
Mm.
I have a
Anyway.
question for you,
Fair
John.
enough.
It's like we've been talking about Nene's chicken now. How authentic is the taste to what you get back home? I mean, or even at home, even comparing like the
It's
fried chicken. at
actually, I was also quite amazed when I first tasted, the Nene chicken, especially the spicy. I think it's a very popular flavor in Korea as well. So it's almost the same, I would say. Yeah,
Wow.
almost the
Okay,
same.
okay.
Yeah. So that's why I really enjoy Nene chicken. I think I have Nene chicken, like at least once or twice. Yeah, that's right.
Oh my
Like
God,
a,
I love
week
that.
or a fortneith. Yeah.
I haven't had it in so long.
Yeah, me neither.
We should go out and celebrate and have a nene chicken.
Mhm. And,
Also though, Jun, ne doesn't that mean yes? So nene chicken, are you saying yes chicken? Is that
oh,
right?
technically yes.
I knew it. See, these
Nene
language classes are
chicken.
coming in handy. Yes chicken. Yeah,
Mm.
right. Anything else that you like in terms of Korean food? I know K barbecues are quite popular options. You go with
yes.
friends, you buy a lot of food, and you grill your own meat, which is quite authentic to Korean culture. Like we don't really have, I guess we have barbecues. That's the Aussie way, but nothing like you're sitting around a dining table together, cooking your own meat, grilling your own meat, having the side dishes.
Yeah, I think I do love K barbecue as well, especially the buffers. I think
Yeah.
really love them. But one, I guess, probably what a lot of people probably won't know that much about this, but is that Korea actually has I would say it's like a fusion kind of a food. It's like a Chinese Korean kind of fusion. So I don't know if you have heard about dishes like jjajangmyeon or
Yes,
like a
jjajangmyeon.
jampong or 탕수육. So it's like so basically if I just explain literally explain in English, it's like a black bean like a paste
sauce,
yeah, with a noodle, and then we got some meat and some vegetables there. It has that kind of a smoky that kind of a fire flavor, and it's actually really good. If you go to Northbridge, there is a place called Sura. So I don't know if
Sura?
probably have.
I don't often go to Northbridge. I kind of avoid that place like the plague, but might be worth checking out a Korean restaurant.
Maybe one day, we can go there.
The
and
name
have some.
sounds familiar, actually.
And you like the jjajangmyeon there, is it?
Yeah, it's my favorite, and there's something called a jampong, which is it's quite spicy. So it has all these variety of seafoods inside there. Also with the kind of smoky, like fiery, kind of flavor. And yeah, it's got like a noodle there. So I really strongly recommend.
Strongly recommend.
Yeah,
No, that sounds
try that.
amazing.
And lastly, 탕수육 is it's like sweet and sour kind of a pork, yeah.
Okay.
But basically in a Korean kind of Chinese kind of fusion style.
Influence.
So yeah, it's really nice, and I also recommend those as well. Yeah.
Okay. And it's nice to hear a lot of people probably very familiar with ramen, different types of you can get Korean ramen and stuff is quite popular, but you've expanded that and spoken a lot about other kinds of noodles, so that's really good. When I was in Korea, every single restaurant or dish that we ate, even if you're just eating ramen, right, you have kimchi. So fermented vegetables, and at first it was very strange to get used to the flavor because it's quite sour, it's quite fermented, But then as we ate it with pretty much every dish over there for like 2 to 3 weeks, however long we were there, when I came home, I was like, man, I need kimchi. Like this meal doesn't feel complete. I need that kimchi. So like I'm really boring, but just even kimchi on its own, like I could just eat kimchi on its own. Oh my gosh, it's
Wow.
so good.
Wow.
Do you like kimchi?
Yeah, I do love kimchi. I think I like any kind of dishes with kimchi as well. You know, like a kimchi fried rice.
Kimchi
Or,
jjigae,
that's right, kimchi jjigae.
kimchi
You know,
stew.
that's right, stew. And yeah, so I think it goes along, you know, really well with a lot of, Korean dishes. So,
Yeah.
like,
Ben, have you tried kimchi before?
I don't know if I have.
What?
I might have.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
have to influence you. Interesting though, talking about kimchi, I was doing some research a while ago about probiotics, which are things that help good bacteria grow inside your gut. And I was looking at some research that have been done actually on like Koreans who eat a lot of kimchi and what the benefits of kimchi are, which is actually quite good for your health because of all the fermentation and the probiotics if you eat it, often. So that's interesting. I thought that was something.
Yeah, so I guess another, fact about the kimchi is that, it has, good, probiotics, so good for your, the gut, health and, everything. But I guess at the same time, if I do pick about the kimchi, the downside is that, I guess about the salt, the sodium, that's right. So it's a little bit, it could be salty, so I guess if you have like a hypertension or like that, then you might want to,
cut back a bit.
That's right, cut a little bit.
Yeah, right.
But otherwise, yeah, I think it's a delicious. Personally, I really love kimchi.
Have it with like rice and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. No, thanks for sharing and those good food recommendations as well.
So, John, circling back to your project, how important do you think it is to have a good supervisor? And do you think the project matters? Or do you think that one is more important than the other?
That's a really good question. I think choosing the right supervisor for yourself is the most important thing because that you'll be spending majority of time with a supervisor. For example, if you're doing a PhD, I think as Ben and Dilla, you guys are doing, some people say that you're pretty much married to the supervisor. So I think if it's a person, someone you feel like a little bit uncomfortable or like it's a bit hard to approach, then I think it would be really hard to actually you'll have a hard time during your masters or like a PhD or anything. So I think the most important thing first is that if you actually could go along well with the supervisor, and also I think individual people they have different personalities, so they have basically each person have a different person matching together. So I think you want to find that if you can
you got to have that healthy relationship.
Exactly.
Not strained. And
that's right. And I think you can straight away kind of tell and that whether you're feeling okay with that person or not, like by just having a few conversation as well. So I think that's one of the reason it took me a while to actually decide which supervisor that I would actually take. And then I think the next important thing is the project itself. So I think the project itself is also really important, but I think it's not as important as the supervisor itself. I think the project itself, sometimes could have like a big significance. Like for example, it's a project that. Well, I can't really discriminate or say. I'm not trying to say bad, but there are some really projects that have like a big future. For example, like AI at the moment is a big kind of a thing, and I personally think the reason why I chose the tissue engineering is that it's a little. I mean, the topic itself it's quite revolutionary. So that's right, cutting edge. You're trying to replace the diseased tissue with something that we actually man-made. Do you see what I mean? We're trying to create a creation, so like a tissue. So I think that was one of the reasons why I chose this kind of field. So yeah, I think
you got to have that healthy marriage, and then you got to have a project that you're interested in and in a good area.
On that note, how did you find your supervisors and your project, Jun?
So I think I was quite lucky. So obviously Elena is my main supervisor. She's very nice. She's very friendly, and she's very I think most importantly, like caring person. So just having someone like that, I think it's a really blessed kind of a thing. I think it's like a privilege. Yeah, and
a marriage made in heaven, would you say? So did you have to look her up, do some research? How did you come across her in the first place?
The first time I met her was when there was like an open, I think, like a presentation in Harry Perkins. I think I was kind of hesitating on that day if I should, go to that, place or not. But I eventually, end up being there. So, and I was actually quite lucky. I've seen her, presentation about her work, about the tissue engineering and, regenerative medicine. I was absolutely, mind blowing, And in fact, actually, when I was in the final year of my undergraduate degree, there was actually a research proposal competition. So the theme was actually about tissue engineering. So there were several groups. Actually there were quite many. So basically they were competing each other. So on the first day, basically I was assigned to a random group. And the thing is that I used to have a lot of interest in regenerative medicine, because back then when I was in high school I actually watched this documentary about tissue engineering and regenerative medicine. I think the topic was called How to Build an Organ, from National Geographic series. So I was absolutely astonished, the fact that for example, a man who got his little finger chopped off, because of the accident, he actually managed to grow his like a finger back, by using like a purified pig's bladder. So it was actually a pure extracellular matrix. So it's part of a it's like the scaffold, one of the components of the scaffold. And I was actually absolutely just shocked. And then I had that in my mind. And then when I graduated high school, then I went to university, and guess what? In the final year of my undergrad, I'm having like a
sounds meant to be, if you ask me.
Yeah. So on the first day, I came up with this idea of this the topic in the tissue engineering, and it was about the cardiovascular tissue engineering. And just to say, eventually we came up in the very first place, and we won. Like, it was a little prize. It was not a big thing, but we won like a little bit of prize as well, a little bit of money.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and
well
then
done.
Eventually we managed to go to Australian Society of Medical Research, like a conference.
Wow.
Yeah, so that also kind of gave me some inspiration and motivation, and gave me a good kind of a picture of how it's like to do a research. So that's how I think eventually, which brought me up to here right now.
Yeah, right. I've actually a while ago, I'm actually one of Elena's fans, I guess, if you want to call it that. I remember Ben, you and I had gone to a interdivisional meeting up at Perkins North, and that was where I think Elena had first come from, maybe I'm wrong, but Queensland, I think.
I think it was Queensland.
Yeah, so she was actually doing a really big presentation, and it was on what her lab has been working on. And I remember just I don't remember much of what she was saying, but what has stuck with me is her absolute passion and enthusiasm for her research and wanting to give back to people. And she even brought out these little props and she handed them around. She was like, these are what we've been building. You can see the little valves and you can see all the different materials and the mesh and stuff that she had used from, I'm guessing, the MEW now, the Mu. So definitely a big fan of Elena's work. So it's great to hear about some of the stuff you've been working on her team as well. No, thank you so much, Jun, for joining us. So I'm going to take that last part out, sorry, because we're actually not finished. Have we talked about your hopes for the future, Jun? What are your hopes for the future?
So I guess I'm currently, in a stage where I'm almost finishing my master's degree. And I think I really enjoyed, basically, at the same time, just bless the fact that I have really good supervisors and also and good people around me, like you, Adela, and Ben.
Aww.
So I do want to advance my studies even more further on to
a
PhD.
Wow.
That's correct. So I did apply for a PhD scholarship. Well, I'm just praying about that. That hopefully I could get one for next year. And
so when do you hear back? Do you know?
I think about like end of this year or maybe early next year. I think because of my extensions and things. I think that will make a little bit of change.
Oh, keep us updated.
Hopefully I'll be
That's quite
in the
exciting,
same boat
really.
as you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And so once if I do get to do a PhD and if I finish one, then I guess if I do get an opportunity to go for like a postdoc, in places like, for example, USA or UK, any prestigious universities like for example Johns Hopkins or Harvard, then I would love to actually I'm very keen for it.
So you're wanting to stay in research. This is kind of where your passion lies.
So that's when, if I do get like an opportunity, once I finish the PhD. But otherwise, I do really because my goal is to become a physician, like a scientist, and also a physician. So pathology has always been my great interest. So I do want to become a pathologist. So we'll need to have to complete medicine at one
Medical
point.
school.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Wow. Sounds like you've got a long road of studying still ahead of you, John.
So that it will be a long journey, but I am ready and to actually pay for the price.
I'm sure it'll be rewarding at the end after you get to your dream job.
That's right, and I guess this is my personal kind of aspiration, or like a dream. But I dream to become the first Korean Australian to win the Nobel Prize for the medicine.
Aim big, guys.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So far, there has been none of, I would say, any person who actually won the Nobel Prize except President Kim Dae-jung, who's was a former president. I think he won a Nobel Prize for the peace for maintaining like a good relationship between South and North Korea. Yeah, but otherwise, there's none. So, which is quite
no pressure.
I definitely think that
that's amazing.
Korea could
definitely dream big. Aim high.
That's right.
Great. And I guess we can finish off and we'll wrap up by, is there any other advice that you'd like to give to future master's students or PhD students?
So again, I think, try to spend a lot of time, look for someone that you could actually go along well with, someone who's really friendly and, has a good personality, who actually matches with you, and basically seek advice from people near you, like any like a master student or PhD student, so I think that would be best advice, and just keep going and keep trying. I guess you're young, and basically everything is it's worth it. It's an investment for yourself. So yeah.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jun, for making the time to join us. We really appreciate hearing more about your fascinating life and insights to studies.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adela and
No
Ben,
worries.
for having me today. It's an absolute honor.
wow.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, everyone at home or currently driving home from work. Thank you so much for making the time to listen to the podcast. What are we talking about next week, Ben?
Next week we'll reflect on our first years of our PhD, second year blues, and the things no one will tell you about doing a PhD.
We'd love to have you back. See you next week.
Bye.
If you'd like to get involved, drop us your questions and your queries. Let us know what you'd like to hear on the show. And you can find us on our Instagram at SoYouThinkYouCanPhD. And there's a link to our email there as well. Thank you so much. See you next week.
Bye.